time to write now.
Right now.
Right now. Welcome to another daily motivation stream. I'm your host, Kaufman, and today, hopefully we're going to get in some writing. Hopefully you've been getting in some writing, and hopefully this weekend was super positive for you. As always, we're going to try to do some stuff. So for those of you who've been tuning in lately over the past couple weeks, you know that I've been really focused on doing writing sprints. This week, I'm mixing it up. I'm at an excellent point in the Last Scarecrow, and we're in the middle of a crazy fight scene where Scarecrow is trying to survive against 70, 80 other animals in a fight to the death in this Coliseum. And I need to just focus since I have so little time. So we're going to be doing free writes all week. That means no writing sprints. So I'm going to be joining you in the chat. I'll chill with you, chat with you, have questions, and we'll talk. But I really got to focus in since I have such limited time for our sprints and I really want to make progress. I am so stoked and I invite you to come join the conversation, come chat, and come get some writing in as well. And hopefully, let's make some progress. By the way, I'm Kaufman. Welcome to the Right Now community. And what are we at? 550 consecutive writing streams and counting, and many, many more. And by the way, I see you guys. Unknown, welcome back, my friend. So great to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Always a pleasure to have you in the chat. Hopefully your writing, I remember your poetry, your like poetic writing style is going well. Lynn, you're like rough day at work, so hoping to get some words in so I can ignore it a bit. I like totally feel your pain, Lynn. Sometimes like just rough days can make it so much harder to write. It sucks when I'm like that and I'm having like a challenging day, I start the writing sprint and I just don't feel like writing like at all. I don't feel like writing at all. The two things that have worked for me personally is I try to use a muscle memory thing of just doing a typing test. So I'm like, all right, I'll get myself into just typing. Sometimes that works. Other times I will just go back and reread what I had last written because I realized that essentially what I have to do is I have to do a mindset shift. I have to switch my mindset back into creative. And by reminding myself of like either what was I last writing or reread a section that you've rewritten lately, it gets yourself back into it because really you're having to do you really have to change your perspective, and it's hard when you've had tougher days. Hey, what's up, DM? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Always love seeing other writers here in the community. What type of writing do you do? I would love to hear. Drop a comment. So on Mary. Welcome back, Mary. It was great having you in our writers group over the weekend. Very, very fun, my friend. Nice. Unknown. You're like, yeah, I've been writing a few hours today. I'm very happy about that. Super sweet. So as you guys can see, I already have all my stuff set up. I have to get myself back into the vibe. So I'm probably going to be doing a slight review of the first half of the fight and see if I can push myself. You can read along with me if you want, but that's what I'm going to do. We're going to start right at the beginning of when Scarecrow starts the fight. Oh, man, I don't know how it's going to sound. Oh, I don't know how it's going to go. Oof. All right. So I need to do it more for my own purposes. But as always, I'll throw up the music. Feel free to read along, and that's what I got for you. Let's get some writing, and let's have a solid sprint. I got 45 minutes, and we will see what we can do. I'll throw up the music and I'll come join you in the chat. I have to read this section aloud because I have to make sure that it actually makes sense in my own head. You're welcome to listen along if you want, or you can just put me on mute if you're writing and focused. Um, with certain sections, when I'm like at a, because this is such an intense chapter, I have to hear. I know I've gone through written and revised sections of it. I have to make sure that the pacing for the first half of this feels the way that I'm intending it for it to do, recognizing that this is a second draft. There'll probably be grammar mistakes. There'll probably be opportunities for pacing, and there'll probably be some opportunities for some slightly improved descriptions. Maybe a little bit of wordiness could be cut out, but the general pacing and framework, like I need to make sure that I can feel it. So feel free to listen along if you guys want. All right. For anyone who doesn't know the story, Scarecrow is currently been thrust into a Colosseum fight to the death. And he's taken up his allies, Gore the grizzly bear and King the cobra, as they're going to try to survive amongst these many other animals who are trapped here. So we're going to see what we're gonna see what's up. Okay. And there's only the first half that I need to go through. Okay. All right. Paws scurried, hooves stomped, howls intermingled with chirps, bleats with roars, snorts with screeches. Let the fight begin. The Tiger King roared, arms crossed beside Marchek, spectating from atop the dais, arms crossed beside his lieutenant, beside the furry lieutenant, the key lieutenant, the whip. Arms crossed beside the whip. That's what we're going to do. Arms crossed beside the whip, spectating from atop the dais. Many stood still, watching, waiting. Others prowled solo. Like them, some prisoners formed allies. On one side, the grizzly bear stood tall. We have to set that up. Scarecrow looked around warily. Scarecrow looked around warily. Like them, some prisoners formed allies. On one side, the grizzly bear stood tall, chest puffed out. On the other, the cobra rose to full height. Scarecrow, stay! Gore roared above the noise. Rage etched across his face as the three of them and the tiny mantis maintained their position from atop the dune. Scarecrow wheezed as a thin wooden pole with a metal hook was pressed against his chest. Scarecrow, scare! King hissed, his joking demeanor subdued, head swiveling back and forth, eyes slitted more than normal. Even the praying mantis crouched atop the snake's head, front legs ready to strike. Even the praying mantis had crouched atop the snake's head, front legs ready to strike. Scarecrow held his ground as he glanced around at the barrier. The aura magnified the sun's light, making the arena brighter, more prominent and lifelike. The aura entrapping them. The entrapment aura magnified the sun's light, making the arena brighter, more prominent, and lifelike. The first strike came from afar. The golden-spotted jaguar dashed at the yellow-eyed hyena, who rolled around, laughing. Their movements were a blur, two specks of yellow chasing, diving, and rolling around like a game of cat and mouse. Even the four sets of eyes hiding within tufts of grass beyond looked on, wide-eyed and enamored. Gore roared at an ox, three horns pointed and charging straight for them. The grizzly leapt forward, claws extended, roaring, and forcing the beast to skid to a halt, bellow, and turn tail. We won't stay this lucky, the grizzly muttered, returning to their formation against the dune. Cowards and predators, King hissed, pulling himself up the wall, but not far enough to warrant the glare of a few keys hanging above, hooting for their destruction. Near a pile of rocks, a warthog rammed into the wall as an armadillo rolled out from underneath, knocking its leg out and spinning away furiously. A ginormous, hairy foot crashed down upon the armored animal. The foot's owner, a mammoth, with fur, tusks, and a glare that could shatter stone, somehow blending into the wall. Eyes connecting, Scarecrow looked away, gulping. The sky, and I'll watch you. Gore's paw wrapped his shoulder and grabbed his face. forcing him to look up. If the moon hits the sky before 10, 15 deaths, King hissed. Then our odds of dying by cholera are high. Scarecrow looked aside, stuttering. What can we do? What we must, Gore finished, smoldering. King, you have the count. The cobra hissed in acknowledgement, and I have the kill. No, Scarecrow retorted. These animals, it's not their... The grizzly smacked him aside as a pitchfork flew through the air where he had been and plunged into the sand, wobbling. No more words. Watch, Gore screamed, turning his back and resuming a defensive stance. The eagle and owl circled violently around a lion, paws blazing and swiping with each pounce. Near the center of the arena, near the center of the arena, the eagle and owl circled violently around a lion, paws blazing and swiping with each pounce. A squirrel, covered in blood, streaked past underneath, chased by a chicken who pecked at its tail with each hop. Their chase led into a patch of grass as a panda, small and mighty, rolled forth from the hiding spot and into the leg of a giraffe who grunted with a shriek. A pair of fierce feet kicked through the air from a barking kangaroo as they thudded against the giraffe, sending the long-necked creature sprawling away into a mud pit. Scarecrow fumbled with the hooked weapon pole in his hands. Not even sure what to do with it. Uncertain what to do with it. Back against the sand, he shook his head. An overwhelming sadness washed over him, watching animals bite, claw, pound, and thrust at each other. How was anything supposed to survive this? The jaguar and hyena rushed past them, nearly sending his hat flying as he gripped it tightly. Gore roared, King hissed. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted the horned tank of a rhinoceros, charging full force at the antlered juggernaut of a moose. An oinking pig slid across a stretch of ice and into the mandibles of a crocodile, who chomped with such ferocity that blood spewed everywhere. Yet, coming from nowhere, it was the sharp teeth of the garbed weasel that tore into the reptile's neck. With a trill of glee, it dashed away from a stampeding zebra, whose high-pitched barks preceded it. The red-eyed salamander clung on, with its tail wrapped around the raccoon, whose arm, now missing, bled profusely. As Scarecrow, run! The bucketed edge of the elephant charged at them, full fury. Looking either way, he leaped out of the way as the trunked attacker plowed into the dune, sending sand everywhere. He rolled onto his back, sitting up quickly and fumbling around. The snake was nowhere in sight, while Gore quickly recovered on the opposite side of the elephant. Out of nowhere, a black-spotted wolverine lunged on the other side of the elephant. A black-spotted wolverine lunged at the grizzly with a pointed spear, forcing his friend to engage. The elephant pulled his bucket head from the dune, shaking sand off and spinning in either direction. Shaking sand off and spinning its trunk in either, and swinging its trunk in either direction. Mr. Elephant, please, we don't have to fight, Scarecrow begged as the trunked behemoth turned his way. Hot breath wafted over him as he noticed a set of holes were poked through. The bottom of the bucket, bright red eyes glaring within. Hot breath wafted over him as he noticed. Just go with that. Hot breath wafted over him as he noticed a set of holes were poked through the bottom of the bucket, bright red eyes glaring within. He took a step back warily. Please, let's just... A harsh snort sent him stumbling back as his hat fluttered away, and the elephant prowled towards him. Dropping the pole, he grabbed his head and chest, feeling his breathing quicken. The hat, his life. He looked everywhere, backing away. His chest pounded rapidly. Without the hat, what was he? The behemoth pushed him back further, each step rumbling against the earth. He was just a scarecrow. I need the hat, he pleaded, but his attacker gave no ground, pushing him back further. Scarecrows don't need stupid straw hats. This one is leather. It's special. It's made with... He fell onto the ground, hearing the boy in the red beanie's words bounce round his head as if he were there. The ground shook. He was going to become nothing again. The behemoth lifted its ginormous feet into the air, preparing for the stomp. Scarecrow grabbed himself, shaking. I'm just a scarecrow, he muttered, looking not at the pad coming down full force at him, but at his tattered jeans, straw sinew and stuffing, bursting from various rips and tears. The ground shook. Okay, he fell onto the ground, hearing the boy in the red beanies, hearing familiar words. Let's go. Hearing familiar words bounce around his head, as if bouncing around his head. Hearing familiar words from hearing the boy's familiar words bounce around his head. The ground shook. He was going to become nothing again. The behemoth lifted its ginormous feet into the air. The behemoth lifted its ginormous feet into the air for a final death stomp. For a final stomp. For a death stop, for a lasting. The behemoth lifted its ginormous feet into the air above him. Scarecrow grabbed himself, shaking. The behemoth lifted its ginormous feet into the air. Scarecrow grabbed himself into the air above him. Scarecrow grabbed himself, shaking. I'm just a scarecrow, he muttered, looking not at the pad coming down full force at him. Looking not at the pad coming down upon him, but at his tattered jeans, straw sinew, and stuffing. But at his tattered jeans, straw sinew, and stuffing, bursting from tears, from various tears. He liked being alive. He didn't want to be just a scarecrow anymore. The moose flung through the air into the elephant's head, sending both crashing against the wall. Sending the moose into the elephant's head, sending them crashing against the wall. Two keys fell to the ground, hooting at each other, throwing fists, and getting into a fist fight of their own. None of that mattered. Scarecrow looked everywhere for the hat. He felt his movements slowing down. This was how he would end, becoming nothing again. He felt himself slowing down. What? He felt himself slowing down. Was this, he felt himself slowing down. Was this his consequence? Was this his consequence for trying to help? Falling onto his stomach. He crawled around. He crawled around, spotting it near the sand. He dragged himself. He dragged himself forward, reaching for it. He turned sideways, looking at the elephant, and gasped. The elephant's face, the bucket, the bucket was missing. Did I say the bucket was missing? The elephant's face was revealed. The elephant's face was revealed. With fur was revealed. Let's go with that. The elephant's face was revealed. Whiskers, fur, stubby ears, and cat-like eyes. It wasn't aggression that stared back at him. It was pure terror. The elephant screeched, swinging its snout about wildly as it pounded to the elephant or whatever it was. The beast screeched, swinging its snout about wildly as it pounded to its feet. The lifeless body of the moose was bleeding out just between them. The lifeless body of the moose was bleeding out. The lifeless body of the moose was bleeding out just between them. His hat was just out of reach. The elephant's cat-like eyes glared at him, the chaos of the fighting all around. This wasn't right. What type of world demanded this? Forgetting momentarily about... this wasn't right. The chaos of the fighting ensued all around. He lost himself in the fear of the beast's eyes, feeling his own fear of he lost himself in the fear of the beast's eyes. He lost himself in the fear of the beast's eyes, feeling his own insecurities arise. He didn't, forgetting momentarily about his rapid heartbeat. Let's see, do I like that? His hat was just out of reach. The elephant's cat-like eyes glared at him. The chaos of the fight ensued all around. He lost himself in the fear of the beast's eyes, feeling his insecurities arise. Why was he different? Was he the last Scarecrow? Damn, that's actually really good. It's good thematically. That's actually really good. Oh man, why was he different? And why was he different? And was he the last Scarecrow? Wow. Despite his rapid heartbeat, profuse sweating, and increased breathing, he reached for the bucket and rolled it to the catafont. Oh, man. All right. Eyes locked, the beast stared back at him with an ancient gaze that held a quiet weight of torment long forgotten. Its trunk sliced down to the air. A scarecrow expected to be beaten. As Scarecrow expected, the end. Expected the end. As Scarecrow expected, the end. But instead felt his hat. Dropped loosely upon his head. He breathed a sigh of relief as the catafont returned the bucket to its own head, and with one last look, stomped the ground near Scarecrow and dashed away. Dashing away. All right, that I would say that's the end of that first beat. Oh man, that was interesting. So it's always interesting when you have a section and you haven't and I haven't gone through the revision, or not the revision, but it's kind of like hearing it aloud is actually really, really powerful, especially when you're asking yourself, do things need to be fixed and how can you improve upon things? It always creates such an interesting experience when you're first writing and then revising and then re-revising, especially when you're reading out aloud or doing editing work. I always find it super helpful to be able to read things aloud, especially when I'm working on a section or a story beat that's supposed to be very prominent or impactful. I ask myself when I think back about how that sounded overall, I think it hits a number. It hits all the story beats that I needed it to do, which was definitely very powerful. I asked myself what are some fixes. There's definitely some cleaning up. There's definitely a little bit of cleaning up in terms of some wordiness. There's some stylistic descriptions which could be stronger. I feel like the first page of it kind of gets. I feel like I need to get a little bit more into the fight a little sooner. But overall, I'm happy with how it's turned out so far. All right, onwards and upwards, on to the next part of the fight. All right, I'll throw back up the music for all y'all who are getting in some writing of your own. All right, my friends. What a chapter. Oh my goodness. This is quite a chapter that I got going on, that I got cooking. So, wow. Okay, so I feel like I definitely did get some solid I did get a little solid progress. I'm glad that I not revised, but I'm glad that I reviewed the first half of the chapter, or the first half of this part of the fight, this section. Um and I'm still feeling like I have a pretty good pulse of what I'm doing with it. And I know I already know some adjustments I could make, but this is definitely it's definitely awesome how it's shaping up. I'm so happy with it. So that's wrapping up the time that I got for you today. Hopefully you were able to get some progress as well. I could tell a number of you guys were working on different types of writing projects, getting in some words, getting in some writing, some revising, and all the stuff in between. So thank you all for joining me today. It's been great. Like I said, this week we're going to be doing more free writes. So feel free if you just want to come hang out, and we'll just see how much writing we can get within the hour. I'll be back same time, same place, 3 Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And we'll get in some more writing. I'm going to get through this chapter this week. So good. And then we'll be getting that much closer to the midpoint, which is even crazier. Stuff just gets crazier. But thank you all so much for joining me, my friends. And if you enjoyed the stream, tap that like button on your way out. Help us show the algorithm that writing streams are cool. All right, my friends. Unfortunately, you found yourself at the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. Words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kaufman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. It's time to write
now.
Sorry.
Right now, not right now, but right now. Read now, right now. Is that right?
Words are wind, but stories